Hi there, my name's Adam Fielding and welcome to another one of my music making streams. Today I'm planning on writing something vaguely housey, and with that in mind I've actually cheated a little bit this week, and I thought I'd start with something that I wrote yesterday or maybe the day before actually. So it's like a simple art pattern that I wrote using VK2, and I thought I'd talk you through what I've actually got going on here and how I'm planning on making something with it. But for now, I'm just going to play you what I've actually created, and this is going to be the basis for everything that I do from this point onwards. So if you don't like this, you're probably not going to like what I'm doing tonight. So here we go. This is my little art pattern that I've got going. So I've noticed a few people in the chat mentioning VK2, and I mean I've been using VK2 quite a lot over the past few weeks, and so I've got to say I'm a big fan of how it sounds, and I think this patch in particular kind of highlights what you can do with it. So basically I've got three oscillators. I've got oscillator 1, which is a simple sine wave, oscillator 2, which is a VK1 type sine wave. I'll go over these in a second and explain what's going on there. And oscillator 3, which is another sine wave, but that's tuned way up. That's going up 7 semitones, and it's up a couple of octaves as well. So that kind of adds a bit of brightness to the top and some extra harmonics to the sound. So the interesting thing is oscillator 2. So there's also quite a lot of drive going on here in this particular patch, and that does actually flavor the sound quite a bit. So if I turn the drive off, it will sound completely different. And if I bring that back, it just saturates the synth patch really nicely, and I love how that sounds. So there's not really a whole lot else going on there. There's no fancy modulation or weird use of envelopes. Envelope 1 is tied to the filter section. Envelope 2 is tied to the amp envelope section, as is normal with a VK2 patch. So the second oscillator is where it kind of gets interesting. So if I just mute that for a second, it sounds like this, and I'm just going to bring it in slowly. So that's kind of a nice patch on its own. So my plan is to introduce that second oscillator just to kind of add a bit of variation during the track. And the third oscillator is kind of its own thing entirely. So I'm just going to mess around with that. So the third oscillator makes it sound very bright and kind of perky because it's so much higher than the other oscillators. And all combined, you kind of get this interesting sound. So by messing around with those and automating the oscillator levels, I'm planning on getting some nice variations going on there. So again, my plan is to write something vaguely housey. I'm thinking something kind of progressive housey. Drabbit has said, "House, now you'll be making that Kentucky Fried Chicken money." Yes, as opposed to the tens of dollars that I was making before. So yes, I mean, I say kind of progressive house. My understanding of electronic music subgenre is not fantastic at the best of times, so that will be interesting. I would say taiko vibes as well. That's actually interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even considered that, but yeah, I can totally hear that. So I'm not actually using the pump at the moment. I've just got the pump ready. So if I crank that up, so that's my plan when the kick kind of comes in later in the track, which I'm going to be doing soon. So I've got a couple of ideas that I'd like to do. One of which is actually directly related to something I did earlier today when I created a sample for another track that I was working on. And that's going to be interesting. So someone's asked, is there a way to make pump trigger when a note is played rather than constantly be pumping? I believe so. There is a gate input on the back, so you can kind of use that. If you send a gate CV out straight into there, you can use that to trigger when it kicks in, I believe. But I've never actually used it for that. I always just use it as like a straight up 4 on the floor pump, because if I want to be doing actual side chaining, I'll just use the SSL mixer and kind of do it there. So you can send audio into the compressor section and use that as a side chain for the actual compressor there, which is great if you're kind of doing that kind of thing, but for pump I just use it as like a quick and dirty pumping sound. So yeah, so right, okay, so my first thought was it'd be really cool to add some kind of really nice pad, and based on what I was doing earlier today, I felt like it'd be a nice continuation of what I was doing to just use grain to create a nice pad, also kind of similar to what I was doing last week when I created a pad out of a factory soundbank sound. So I'm just thinking it'd be nice to just throw an old factory soundbank chord in there and get something going. So that's my plan. So I'm in FX Vox at the moment, but I'm not sure if that's kind of what I want. I don't think I'm going to be able to use the bird as a pad. I don't think that's possible. Maybe some other time. I might. Yeah, I'm in the wrong folder, so I'm going to have a look in here. It has some nice stabs and stuff. So I'm thinking something kind of stringy. So I'll see if there's string. Right, maybe not. Well. I'm just gonna do a search for string.
Okay, let's do it.
Nice. I reckon I can do something with that. So I'm just gonna bring that into grain and start playing around with that and see what pops out. So I'm just gonna slow that down a little bit and adjust the envelope, attack and release, and set the tuning to whatever it's detected via the root key analysis section here. So I'm just going to click set, and so I'm just going to set the loop start and end to kind of a nice little chunk there. So I'm just going to set that to forwards and backwards. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we will see. So just increase the pan spread, maybe have a little bit of pitch jitter, some jitter there as well. I think, yeah, what I need to do now is just give it the old DR1 treatment. So I've just rolled off the lows there. I think I might come back to that because I feel like without any other melody besides the arpeggiated synth pattern to actually kind of anchor it, I feel like I'm just taking several stabs in the dark here. So I'm going to create a bass patch, and for the bass patch I'm going to go back to the VK2 because I'm really liking what that's been doing recently. So I'm just going to decrease the range, create a rectangular synth, rectangular oscillator, and reduce the release. Right, okay, so let's lower the filter. So it's not particularly impressive at the moment. So I'm going to bring in LFO1 to control the shape of the oscillator, and that's going to be way too quick for now, so it's going to sound kind of ridiculous. So I'm just going to slow that down. Yeah, I don't really want envelope 1 type of frequency there. I just want it to be a constant. So right, let's turn that down. Okay. And maybe give it a little bit of drive, just a smidge. And I'm just going to take the pump from here and paste that into the insert section here and call that bass. I'm not going to bring it in just yet, but I'm just going to get some bass notes going just so I have something to work from. So that starts on A. So why overcomplicate things? Let's just keep it nice and simple for now. So that's kind of a nice place to start, I guess. Yeah, I really like that. So some people have mentioned Legend in the chat. I'm a huge fan of Legend as well, and I suspect what I'm probably going to do at some point is swing from VK2 to Legend and then find some kind of happy medium between the two. And yeah, I feel like it's been a while since I used Legend, because I've actually been using it quite a bit recently in my own stuff, and I'm not entirely sure why I haven't used it during these streams, so that's interesting. Someone has said Sasha Vibe, which I'm 100% on board with. That is an awesome comparison. I'm a huge fan. Air Drawn Dagger is one of my favourite albums pretty much ever at this point, I feel. And I'm a huge fan of Scene Delete. That's a fantastic record. So yeah, so I'm just gonna, if I turn up those pumps. Let's see if we can get the grain to work over this. What I might do is just right, okay, yeah, that's fine. So I think that's just too much going on in the lows there. Yeah, that's just not really working for me. I think I might. Yeah, I'm really not feeling that, so I might try something else entirely. You know what? I feel like that could work. I just need to mess around with that a bit more. For some reason, I've just got it in my head that should stick. That's kind of interesting. I think maybe with a bit of delay over the top, that could kind of help it to sit a bit better. I may come back to this because I feel like I'm spending too much time on this pad that may or may not actually fit. So I actually kind of like that. It does have kind of a sort of off-kilter feel to it, but I think it kind of works. So what do you think? What do you think in the chat? Does that pad work or should it go? Let me know. I think I'm just going to leave that for now and get some drums going because I feel like I've put that off for long enough. So this week I am going to go back to using the Evolve free drums and not use the factory soundbank drums, just because I feel like I'm due to go back. So I can't keep away from the Wave Alchemy stuff. So I just want a nice kick that fits and works for me, working for me. Awesome. I'm gonna leave that for now. That's so reassuring. I was kind of thinking I like how this sounds, but are my ears fried from working on too much stuff today? So that could be interesting. That might not work, but it might, and I feel like I'm kind of in the mood for stuff that might not work today. So I'm going to use my old drum insert. So that's Eve drums here. So basically, just to reiterate, if someone hasn't seen this before, this is my drum insert section, which I've been using for these streams. So this is an Eve MP5, which kind of gives everything a 12k boost and attenuates around 20k just to kind of smooth things over, which I think sounds really nice, which is then going through a pulverizer just to apply a bit of compression, maybe a bit of dirt, which I'm going to dial in there. And I'm also using the filter just to kind of tickle the highs a bit without making it sound too harsh. Then it's going through a limiter, which I'm going to bump up to about 3 dB, because that seems to have worked quite nicely here. So as someone's rightly pointed out, you can buy the whole Wave Alchemy sample packs for £99 at the moment. They sound really, really good, but I would recommend over those, I'd recommend checking out the Drumvolution Ableton Live pack, which includes all the samples from Drumvolution. So you can just drop them into Redrum, and these samples are from that sound bank basically. These are kind of a free version of that, and they just sound fantastic out of the box. I own Drumvolution, but I tend to just use the samples on their own, as just because I like working with Redrum. Although Drumvolution itself is awesome, so it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. So yeah. I Am Trabbit said, I would say I feel attacked. Someone said it works for house. I see. Sounds good enough for house. I would say I feel attacked, but that's my entire production philosophy. But I feel like that's going to be my production philosophy for this tune. So it sounds good for this track. So there we go. That's probably going to need to come down. So let's just give that a go. It's going to be a nice simple for on the floor. I may have taken too much of the highs off, too much of the lows off that pad actually. That's better. Let's get a snare. Let's grab a snare. I kind of want something a bit noisy, kind of with a bit of a sort of analog-y feel, so. I like that. Ooh. I'm gonna go with 28, but I do like the sound of 24. No, I'm not gonna get sucked into the snare rabbit hole. I'm just gonna pick a snare and bloody run with it. So one thing I do want to show off here is how to draw on the correct sequencer lane. So I'm just gonna create a new note lane on the Redrum here. Keep that separate and just draw a snare on every other kick. So that it sounds too loud on its own, but yeah, I think that sounds good with the compression kicking in. It does bring it down a bit. So at the moment, what we've got is the snare is coming in at the exact same time as every single kick. So the transients of the two are kind of conflicting with each other on every single hit, which is a bit of a problem. So what I'm going to use is Groove Mixer here and just use channel A1 and slide that slightly to the left. Nice. There goes the orchestra stab. Excellent. Keep those coming. I'm just going to just slide it ever so slightly to the left, so it's like a matter of 1 or 2 ticks. So it should be kind of imperceptible in terms of timing for the average listener, but it means those transients aren't going to be playing at the exact same time. And well, let's see how that works. So I'm having to turn the snare down a bit now, because now that the compression isn't kicking in with both of those happening, but it means the snare has a nice kind of crack to it, which is nice. Well, it's kind of the kick and the snare, so those aren't fighting, which is awesome. Buskin Bills has asked, have you got the Little Ammo 100? I don't actually. To be honest, I feel like I haven't really used a whole lot of CV tools in Reason, unless I'm getting mistaken. But I feel like a lot of devices have kind of gone in more of a self-contained direction, and most things that I want to do with CV I can do using stock devices, which sounds almost sacrilegious to say when it comes to Reason, because surely, CV is kind of part of the appeal, and the more it opens up, the more it opens up, the better it's going to be, really. So, but I don't know. I feel like that might be overcomplicating things. But again, I'm the same kind of guy who just ended up paring back his instrument collection because it was getting too out of control. So it's, yeah. Oh, you need it then stick on the pitch or length just to add a little change. Actually, you can do that using Pulsar, which I might do just to kind of give a slight analogy feel on that snare. So I'm just going to route Pulsar's CV output to the pitch input on that snare. And now it's going to sound ridiculous because it's turned up way too high. But I'm just going to turn the rate right down and the level right down. So those snares, there should be a slight variation. In fact, I might use a sample and hold waveform, so it's okay. So I don't really want to overdo it. So yeah, it just adds a nice bit of variation there. I might actually route LFO2 to the. I was going to route it to length, but I remembered that the redrum doesn't have length CV input, so I could use a combinator, but I can't be bothered at the moment. So I feel like I should add some kind of hat. So I'm just going to go into hi-hats and grab, I feel like an open hat would be good. Howdy. So that's way too harsh though. So I just want like a nice little hat. That'll do. Yeah, I think that'll do. So I don't want to overdo it here. I just want to keep things nice and on the groove. I'm thinking it might be interesting to add some extra transients to the kick and snare. So one thing I really like about the Drumvolution and Evolve free libraries is they have a layering tool section which has a bunch of transients that you can use to kind of add to the top of drums. So I'm thinking it'd be nice to add some kind of just some kind of extra top to the kick, just to kind of give it a bit of snap. I'm not gonna mess around with the groove mixer for this. So what I've done is I've taken the gate out for the kick and routed that into the gate input for channel 5, which has the transient on. So every time I play the kick, it'll play that transient over the top. So if I mute that, that's what it sounds without. This is what it sounds like with. So it's a bit much at the moment. And I might do a similar thing with the snare, but I might use the groove mixer to adjust this one and not have it tied directly to. Oh, actually, I like both of those. I'm going to stick with number 5. So I'm just going to create a separate sequencer lane and just take the snares. Actually, I'm going to take the hats and move those up, keep the snares together, and just join those together and select all and bump those up to that transient there. So I'm going to set this to groove mixer A2, and while that's sliding back a couple of ticks, I'm going to have that go forward a couple of ticks. So we shouldn't have anything conflicting in terms of transients. It's just an extra little pop. So I've got that nice little sort of pop on the top of the snare, which is kind of nice. And I might bring that in later in the track. that's kind of neat. I feel like I might add to the hats and have a closed hat, because I've got a hat there, so it'd be nice to have an extra hat there. I think maybe a closed hat would be good. So let's have a little look. That sounds like it might work. I'm just gonna, that's a bit harsh, but so I just want it to kind of come in after the kick. Not that much though. Maybe I'll increase the length. Buskin Bills has asked, why don't you use 8 and 9 exclusive for the hats? I kind of feel like it's not really the kind of track I'm going for here, where the hats are behaving realistically. I feel like if I want them to play together, then it'll kind of give an extra bit of energy even if it doesn't sound like a real drum kit, if that makes any sense. So most of the time I would use channels 8 and 9 and enable channel 8 and 9 exclusive, which means that those two basically choke each other. So you'd typically have a closed hat on channel 8 and an open hat on channel 9. So you'd have the open hat play and then you'd trigger the closed hat and it would choke number 9. Whereas I feel like here it's electronic by nature, so it doesn't really matter so much if it sounds realistic. So, and right now I'm not even playing them on the same note, and well, maybe we'll see. So something that a few people have asked me about before is, if you highlight a selection of notes, say I had all of these notes on one single lane, you can highlight the notes that you want to adjust the velocity for, hold down Alt and Shift, and it will only adjust the velocity of the notes you've got highlighted at the moment, which is incredibly useful. So if I were to have all these kit elements on one sequencer lane, I could just adjust these hats by just holding down Alt Shift and dragging across there, which is incredibly useful. So yeah, I feel like with the shift drag, which is another thing I use all the time, for those unaware, if you shift and drag in Reason, it rewires, easy for me to say, rewires the devices you're using in accordance with the order in which they're placed. So if I were to take the pulverizer and drag that up without pressing anything, it would still be routed. This would route to the Eve MP5, then to the pulverizer, then to the limiter, which is kind of counterintuitive. Whereas if you hold down Shift and drag it down underneath the pulverizer, it will go through the pulverizer, then the Eve MP5 and the limiter, so it's the order in which it's placed, which is incredibly useful. And I feel like that's a feature that should be on by default, really. I feel like you should have to hold down Shift not to do that, because it's incredibly useful. So again, if I were to hold down Shift and drag the limiter to the top, it would go through the limiter first and then those two, whereas if I didn't do that, it just moves it. It doesn't actually change the wiring on the back at all. So Shift and drag, incredibly useful. Cannot recommend that enough. It's a really super useful tool that saved me a ton of time. Otherwise you have to rewire everything manually, which is a bit of a pain. I mean, I say this is progressive house. I have no idea if it is actually going in that direction at the moment, but I feel like I need some extra percussive elements over the top. Ant-Man has asked me, what do you think of this software overall in terms of features and usability? I mean, I'm going to tell you what I tell everyone else. I love it to bits. I've been using it for ages, and there's a reason I've been using it for ages, no pun intended. It just clicks with me, and I absolutely love it. So, I mean, I've used several other DAWs, but Reason is the one I stick to because I just love it. So I feel like I need a percussive loop. So I'm going to go into the loop supply library and delve into the house folder. Why the hell not? So This isn't really the kind of thing I was hoping for. I might actually see if there's... Actually, I'm going to go into the factory sound bank folder because I feel like what I want is kind of more, not percussion, but if I go into the drum loops, I am slightly regretting my choice already. Yeah, it's not what I want. Let's go back to loop supply. Tech house, no, not really. Let's have a listen. I'll give that a go, but I don't think it's what I'm after really. Oh god, that's way too loud. I'm not ruling that out, but it's not really what I'm after. I'm just thinking. That's not really what I'm after either. I get the impression that's not it. See, I'm not super familiar with the loop supply folder, so this is a bit of a punt for me, really. Yeah, screw it. I'm just going to go into the percussion folder and see what pops out. It's worked for me. Oh, progression. Let's go with that. Okay, that's not really what I wanted. That might work if I quantize it a bit or not. Let's just see. I kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah, let's have that loop twice and then, yeah. Let's try that. Someone suggested I use clang. To be honest with you, I have a bit of a love-hate thing with clang. Like, it's a nice idea, but I don't really tend to be able to get a lot out of it when I'm just working on stuff. It has to be something I really focus on, so... But... let's hear them bongos and bongos and congas. I've read that as bongos and congos. I was like, okay. Oh yeah, that is definitely what I'm after. I'm going to leave that for now. I think that's... Yeah, I think that pad does work. Finally, I've come around to the idea of the pad working. I do just want to add some more stuff to this. Yeah, I need some bongos. That's what I needed. Right, I'm going to stop adding percussion because this is getting kind of silly. So I'm just going to call that bongos, percussion, and that's top. Why not? And this can be drums. I mean, in a way, they're all tops, but there we go. Once again, I seem to be writing something that's kind of summary, which is kind of nice. So, right. That is an amazing comment from Dravid. Right now, Tycho is sitting in Dolores Park in San Francisco feeling a disturbance in the force because he spent $1 billion on hardware synths and his sound is captured here in software. Oh, I love it. So I am going to vary things up a bit. I say vary things up a bit. I'm going to use the same idea that I used either last week or the week before, and I'm going to fire up Europa and use Old Faithful, because I want like a sort of gnarly kind of riser that just comes in, gives it kind of a techie kind of feel. So I'm thinking of going back into the factory soundbank folder, into Europa patches, into the bass folder, and picking up Destructor Drone, my personal favorite of the patches I contributed to the factory soundbank. So just want to roll off the lows. So one thing I want to do is I want to change the envelopes so they're not, it doesn't reset per key trigger, because I want that to change. Okay, that's going to be good. So if I... Okay. Right, okay. I feel like if I just... I was thinking of using the SSL for this, but actually I'm going to use the RX 950. I think that'll do a great job here. So I'm just going to use that as a nice little filter. Yeah, that's the problem is that, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sold on that filter. It's a nice idea. Yeah, I'm just going to use... I think I'm just going to use the old ECF. Why not? Okay. That's going to be my filter for this, so... Yeah. Okay. Let's give that a go. It needs, I think this needs lots of delay, lots and lots of delay to really wash out over everything. I'm thinking a nice high filter delay. So just gonna turn on the filter, use the old faithful echo. That needs to be louder. I'm just going to call that ramp for now. I feel like I want that phaser to be more pronounced as well, so let's just crank that up. Alright, I think that works. I think it needs a little bit of reverb as well, just because everything needs a bit of reverb going on. So if I just use the old faithful DR1, pop that in. And now I've completely neutered that. Never mind. Right, I've got some ideas for where I want to go with this, but I feel like what I need to do is pop that in a block. And I might extend that block outwards a bit, just because I want to change a few things in the second half of this block. Ad, why not give the Valhalla a go? Now we all got it for free. Awesome. I'm thinking of doing that maybe with the pad at the start of the track. That's a really cool idea. Maybe adding something else, like a nice textural thing in the intro. That's a nice idea. Be a nice way to bust that out. Yeah. I might just have that last note go up. Yeah, I think just that little change at the end of the block would be nice. So it's not the most harmonically complex track I've ever written, but it's got a nice groove. I like it. So yeah, I saw some mention of adding vocals to this at some point. I am very tempted to do that later on. We'll see how this pans out. But I think I'm just going to stick with the one block for this track because it's a house track. I can get away with lots of repetition. And I think it will kind of add to the more sort of hypnotic flow that I'm going for. So... someone's just said save. Totally beat you to it. But I appreciate that. Someone says, feels like the ARP should go someplace, or is it just me? So one thing I'm going to do is get this song going, and I'm just going to start with the ARP and maybe add some kind of texture. Maybe I'll get Nostromo out again. I feel like it's been a few weeks since I used that in one of these streams. That's always good for getting some interesting textures. Maybe stick that through Supermassive. That will be an interesting idea. So with the ARP, I'm going to turn the pump off at the start so the mix is 100% dry. So with the ARP, I don't want oscillator 2 to be there at the start of the track. I want it to sound just oscillators 1 and 3. So this is how it will sound at the start. One thing I do want to try doing actually is, that's a really good idea. So thanks for the idea of varying this up. So I'm going to use old classic buffer on this to add some cool little glitchy elements, like some stuttery elements to the ARP. So I'm just going to create a track for that. So what I've done is I've adjusted the gate length to 50%, so it just plays each stutter plays for 50% of the whole length of the stutter, and I've changed the mode to current. So here we go, and now I can start adding some stutters. That's way too much. Right. Cool. So I'm thinking like some nice stutters like that when the track gets going. Basketball says, Ad, have you got Stutter Edit? It's much better for stutters. I do have Stutter Edit, but I always feel like I'm really cheating when I use it. I'm going to stick with Buffer for now, but I tend to only use Stutter Edit when I'm working on production tunes to a tight deadline, because like I said, I always feel like I'm cheating when I use it. Like there's no, I don't know, like it's really, really good. And it does sound great. I am tempted to drop it in because it would make things quicker. So I'm just going to drop in stutter edit because I've been goaded into it and it would make things way quicker if I did it. But I've had a couple of crashes with it, so hopefully today is not going to be the day that this completely crashes when I use it. So I'm just going to fire up a bank called, I believe there's a bank just called BT Live Remix, and that's kind of good for sort of simple stutters. And I'm not going to mess around and create a whole bunch of presets because I don't really want to at the moment. But I'm just going to, let's just pop that onto that lane. Let's have a new note lane. So if I just go with that one, All right, so I think I'm just gonna cheat and use stutter edit, right? Cool. I'm not big into the Right, what I might do is... No, I'm going to leave that as it is. Right. So that's some nice easy variation there. So I was thinking of adding a compressor after stutter edit because it is kind of attenuating things when it's in use. I could just turn it up. Actually, I like how that is at the moment, so I'm just going to copy and paste that and cheat and use the alter notes button to just alter them. So I can just kind of bring those in and out when I'm messing around with the actual track itself. So that's a nice way to bring in some variation, I think. Probably not going to go too nuts with that on the drums. I think if I do drums, I will probably stick with buffer because I don't want to go nuts with stutter edit. That's not really what I'm going for here. So I just mute that to start with. Cool, so damn, this is much better than what I had in mind with the ARP. Almost felt guilty about making a suggestion. Don't ever feel guilty. If you hadn't made that suggestion, I wouldn't have introduced that stutter edit. So that's interesting. So yeah, no, I appreciate the suggestions. Keep them coming, because I'm going to run out of ideas at this rate. So I am going to create an instance of Nostromo, and I'm going to use my old favorite trick of just hitting the random button until something good pops out. So, or I could dive into my folder here and see what works. That's a bit too dark. In fact, a lot of these pads are quite dark. I reckon I can do something with that. Even if I don't use that as a texture, I might use that as like a little fill of some kind. I'm going to have that filter in, and it does need a bit of reverb even if I'm going to be using Supermassive on this. So I'm going to add a touch of DR1, but it's going to have a really long tail. So give it about 20-second tail, set that to about 15% dry wet. So yeah, let's have Supermassive. I might try a different patch, but I'm going to copy that because I kind of like it. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I find it helps if I'm trying to play the right. I realise this probably isn't a lot of fun to watch, me just randomising patches to see what works. That'll do, right. Alright, let's mess around with Supermassive. Okay, so I'm going to tempo sync it. And the warp dial is kind of interesting because it adjusts the delay lengths relative to what you've got set with the delay here. So it kind of adds a bit of weirdness. Density is particularly interesting because it makes the kind of delay turn into more of a reverb the higher up you crank it up, which is super nice. So you get this really interesting sort of reverby type sound the longer you leave it. So I might actually dial that in a bit more. I'm going to try a different algorithm. I quite like Great Annihilator for ridiculous reverb. Right. Okay, here we go. So I might have some drums come in there, but I'm going to use the old high pass filter on the drums with a bit of reverb trick to bring those in, so that'll be interesting. So where are the drums? I feel like the drums deserve their own column, really. Well, or more or less. I think the pad can go here. Just doing a bit of housework here, don't mind me. So I'm going to add a DR1 here and have that kind of come in with the drums. So if I just edit the automation on that, have it start quite wet and just come in. That's a bit too much for me. So now I might start bringing in the pump as well. And I always feel like it's a bit of a euphemism when I start saying stuff like that. Bring in a bit of the pump. Yes, absolutely. Do that. So I'm just going to halve that there. Just start it from the beginning. now that seems like an opportune moment to bring in the bass. So actually, if I just get rid of that and just copy and paste that, and yeah, I'll bring in the bass and start filtering in that grain pad as well. And with the bass, I'm also going to do the same thing with the pump kind of coming in over time. So I'm just going to automate the dry wet on that. I'm still not in the habit for some reason of alt clicking on things when I'm automating things. It's just a force of habit on my part. I'm so used to right clicking and selecting edit automation, even though that's always been a shortcut, and I'm not really sure why. So I definitely want that grain pad to filter in. So let's just use the SSL filter for that.
Okay, let's do it.
So actually, I might just have that as a steady bass note. Excellent. The vocoder phrase has been brought back in. I love hearing all these old factory soundbank samples, and it's really cool that I've actually been using grain quite a lot recently just to make pads out of those old chords that are in the factory soundbank. If you haven't tried it already, like all I've done today is just brought a sample in from the factory soundbank and tweaked it a bit. I mean, I didn't think it worked at first, but I think it does actually work quite nicely in the context of the track. So I'm going to start messing around with that second oscillator on the ARP. And again, I might start messing around with the automation on that second oscillator a bit. I feel like it's a nice way of adding variation to the ARP without going overboard. Drabbit said the filtered kick when it comes in sounds uncanny like the metronome in Reason. Excellent. I've just had a question. I'm wondering why you mix and make music in headphones rather than studio monitors. Right, there's a very simple answer to that question. I don't. Generally speaking, I don't tend to mix using headphones. I only do that during these streams because I've got a microphone in front of me, and basically what I'm broadcasting is what I hear. And that's how I'm routing audio from Reason to the stream, because it's basically routing everything I'm hearing via a loopback channel to OBS, which is then broadcasting what I can hear. So if I were to turn my monitors on, you'd end up with a massive blast of feedback, and that's the only reason why I'm doing it. So if I had my monitors turned on, even if I wasn't broadcasting what I hear, you'd also get a bunch of room noise from me broadcasting using this microphone. So that's why I wear headphones during these streams. But yeah, I don't tend to work with headphones. I do tend to work primarily with monitors. So I'm thinking now it's about time I started introducing some extra elements. So Let's have some hats. Let's have a nice pitch bend there. So if I change the bend range to 12 on the bass, I'm just gonna have it really go up there. I may have to zoom in a bit here. So set that to 0, set the bend to 100%. I think I need that to be a little slower. Yeah. That's a nice little change. In fact, I might start opening the filter up a bit on that bass, just for this section. Yeah, I think what I want is that percussion to just filter in, and now I am going to use the handy RX 950 because I really like it's just a one knob solution. But excellent. Oh, I do love that sample and how it just pops up all over the place. Let's have a slight change there. Let's have a go. Not sure if that works. No, that doesn't work. I might just extend that. Why not compromise? Let's mute that second pad note and just massively extend the reverb towards the end so it just washes over. Where is the mix channel? Oh great, the mix channel's been separated from that, right, okay. So I'm just gonna crank up the time on that so it just washes over. I think that'll be nice. So it's time to have an extra little stutter there. Nice. So yeah, some interesting conversation topics popping up in the chat about room correction and stuff like that. So I was asked if I use SonarWorks for my headphone mixes. I don't actually, but that's interesting you mention that because I do have a KRK Ergo, which is it's a little room correction box, which is really, really useful. And I was they don't make them anymore, and I wanted something that I could just leave, not as a plugin, because I would forget to enable and disable a plugin while bouncing stuff. I just know I would. I wanted a hardware box that kind of took that out of the equation, so that's a separate hardware box on my desk. And I wasn't completely sold on the idea until I used it. It is a DSP box, and it's really, really good. I noticed some, I'm not in the most amazing room to work in at the moment anyway, so I noticed a couple of problems that I thought I had with the room, and it was really reassuring when I did use the Ergo and it corrected those mistakes that I noticed. So clearly it's doing something right. So basically the way you use it is you have a calibration microphone and you point it all over the place and you do a bunch of noise tests, and then it basically calibrates the room based on the results from that calibration, basically. So yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, I wouldn't trust it entirely, but for me it works well, and it works well for my purposes because I know my room, which I think is the most important thing, which is great. So here we go. Percussion sounds a bit out of sync. Does a little bit. Right. It's easily solved. Bosh. Let's quantize the life out of it. So just realised what time it is. It's time to add a nice nasal riser. So I'm just going to play this from the start, just so I feel like I'm on the right track. Good reminder, good reminder. With that intro texture, I need to do something with that supermassive. I need to automate it. So I'm going to automate the warp and the density. I feel like those will be two fun parameters to mess around with. And I'm just going to go a bit ape with them here and just see what happens. And I'm going to do the same with the density. I'm a fan of happy accidents, right? Don't hold back on the save command. Keep them coming. I'll just forget otherwise. Oh, that's worked really nicely. That's less so. But awesome, right. Yeah, let's have a nasal riser, right. Yeah, I do forget to save because, as has just been pointed out, Reason never seems to crash, so it's easy to forget to save. And that is pretty much why I have the terrible saving habit, especially during streams. So, yeah, I can count the number of times Reason has crashed on me while I've been in an active session kind of on one hand easily for the past couple of years, which is awesome. Even though I'm using a bunch of VSTs nowadays, it's still rock solid, which is awesome. I was going to add a nasal riser there, but I quite like that just dropping out with those stutters. I think let's have a snare come in there. Just to actually, I don't want to unmute that. Let's just have a single snare. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. So. Actually, no, let's just have that right. Right, okay, now I'm going to use an aux send on the redrum, actually, wherever that is. So I can... Where's the... God, I've dragged all my stuff all over the place. Where's my drum insert section? Here it is, right. Let's pop it there. So I'm going to create a line mixer, and I'm going to route the snare channel there and the stereo out into channel 2. So channel 1 is for the snare, channel 2 is for the rest of the kit. So I'm just going to create a Synapse GR1 and turn that up. Nice, right. Let's have a nice snare reverb there. Some very interesting conversation about masks going on in the chat at the moment. Never thought I'd be this engaged by a conversation about masks. It's distracting. Yeah, so I'm going to have another one of those sections. In fact, I haven't actually brought out the entirety of block 1 yet, so let's do that. Let's keep it steady for now. Yeah, I do think the ARP needs a bit of variation there, so I'm going to start messing around with the oscillator mix amount there. Again, bring that right up there, yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll start messing around with oscillator 3 as well, because I haven't actually done that yet. So let's automate that, bring that in a bit. Let's bring in that destructor drone filter. Let's keep that to one side for now. I'm going to use audio track 1 at some point. So ramp, I'm going to turn on insert pre because I want everything to go through the inserts before it hits the SSL mixer section. So the filter is going to be the last thing it hits, hopefully. So I just want that to filter in. Just had a question in the chat. Hi there, Adam. I was just wondering, could you sometimes share your presets or combinators? I know that we need to have many rack extensions, but maybe we would have them. I do. I share all of my stuff, all of the project files after I've created them via. I have a Dropbox link somewhere. So if someone has that to hand, I can't really dig around looking for it now. I'll either pop it in at the end of this session, or if someone has it to hand, if they could paste it in the chat, that would be very much appreciated. Unfortunately, I don't really have it at the moment. So yeah, but all the project files for all of my live streams and all of the exports are available in Dropbox, so you can grab them, have at them, have some fun. Add the rap to the track that was requested last week. Yeah, seriously, go for it. That's what they're there for. So, yeah, right. Where do I go from here? I feel like I need to bring in some of those stutters. Yeah, I think the next section I'm going to add something kind of on the top, then have a little bit of a break. That'll do. Add that snare top. Yeah, it was time to bring in the bongos. Absolutely. But I'm thinking like something just on the top, like even a really high radical piano. So this is a nice trick that I've used over the years. Where I'll just create a radical piano and turn up the compression, turn up the width, turn down the mechanic noise. So it's kind of my go-to sort of radical piano setup, but I'm just gonna play some really high notes. So does it start on a... So that sounds like it'd be stupidly high, but that might be just right for my purposes. So just turn that right down and yep, you guessed it, bring in the DR1 and crank up the time. So it's... Right, actually, let's have a look. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that alone. Actually, I might have that. Let's put that as the A. Yeah, that's better. Maybe bring that down an octave. Yeah, that's definitely a good place for a nasal riser. So if you missed this last week, I'm going to do something very, very technical. You may miss it unless you're watching carefully. This is a super, super technical technique that I'm going to be doing. So it's a super intense sound design riser. I might get it wrong because it's so intensely technical, but I'll give it a go. So here we go. If I disable that, so now my voice is in reason. Okay, here we go. Okay, I hope you're watching because some very technical stuff going on there. So you may have noticed I was inhaling, but inhaling at just the correct frequency. So I was sniffing. So I'm just going to stretch that, the sound of me sniffing. And where did I put that channel? Let's pop that over here. It can have its own column. And I'm going to stick that through a bunch of reverb again. And it's kind of a wonder that my reverb, the DR1, is not popping up in my favorites list at all, and it never does. I have no idea how the favorites list works in Reason, but I'm not sold on its effectiveness because the DR1 never pops up in there, and I use that thing all the time. So anyway, I'm just going to call this Piano Drops, and this is going to be Nasal Riser. So right, so all I've done is I've recorded the sound of me going and put it through a lot of reverb, so, and I've filtered it massively. It's just going through a massive high pass filter, and it sounds like this. I'm going to turn it down because it's going to be quite loud. There we go. Right, this isn't the kind of snorting I signed up for when I started producing house. Fair point. It's kind of, there's something very symbolic about this. The nasal riser symbolizes obviousness. So there we go. That was my super technical riser there. So again, just the sound of me going and sticking it through a bunch of reverb and rolling off the lows massively. So, and stretching it. Sorry, stretching is important. Okay, so I think now would be a good time to have a bit of a break and just drop the kick and the snares. I mean, I didn't mean to leave that transient in there, that snare top, but I actually kind of like it. Let's have that destructive drone just drop again. Where is that note lane? This is the problem. Oh, there we go. Ramp. let's have that low note again. I quite like that. Actually, I might start fading out that, well, not fading out, filtering out that grain pad as well. So, where are you? I'm planning on bringing everything back in because there's still more to go. Just having a little bit of a drop, as in the old sense of the word, as opposed to patch roulette drop. Cool. I mean, I'm 3.5 minutes in, and I'm not near the end of this track, which is slightly concerning. So I'm just going to play what I've got and keep quiet and keep my eye on the chat. So here we go. Lots of talk about what's on sale in rack extension land at the moment. I mean, my money's on VK2 at the moment, and the Legend, if that's on sale. If the Synapse bundle's on sale, that's a steal as it is anyway, but even more of a steal when it's on sale. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to stop talking about sales. And one thing I really like about Valhalla stuff is it's never on sale. It's just $50 for all of their plugins, and it's never on sale. And I really like that. It's super refreshing, but that's just me. So anyway, I'm going to keep quiet, play what I've got, think of some ideas. Ooh, actually. Right, okay, so I need a massive delay wash there because that's kind of my thing. Some interesting comments here. So, yeah, some Neptune fun. That might happen very shortly. I need to add some sort of vocally touches. That I feel like that's just going to happen. Yeah. Someone's asked, have you used Clang, Pangea, or Humana sometime? I did use Humana a couple of weeks ago, actually, to augment some of the vocal stuff that I recorded, which was interesting. To be honest, like, I like the samples, but sometimes it's finicky. Like, I like them as instruments, but I feel like I would have preferred them as sampler patches, which I feel is a bit, it's a bit of a contentious issue. But you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to try some actual recordings for this, and if that doesn't work, maybe I'll augment it with some other bits. But yeah, in fact, yes, I've used Clang, Pangea, and Humana because I did the demo tune for Reason 10, which involved me using all of those at the same time. It was time to get your girl on. That came out wrong. Sorry. Well, let's just leave that. Let's just leave that there, hanging in the air. So, yeah, I think we need the. Actually, I might have the ARP just stop there and just have a nice big feedback wash. Yeah, can't go wrong with a good feedback wash. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that feedback wash. In fact, I might increase the diffusion as that progresses. Can't beat delay sometimes. Sometimes you just need a nice simple delay. Or someone suggested I throw a polar in. That's not a bad idea actually. Maybe Neptune could meet polar. I need to stop fanning about with this and just create the next section because I'm not getting anywhere here. So I'm just going to have it play a steady bass note for this section and adjust the mix of the pump on the bass so it's not really kicking in during this break. Maybe vary the filter frequency on the bass as well. So bear in mind that filter wash is, well, the delay wash is happening over this, so I'm just going to play it to give myself some context. To do that, so I'm just gonna have that little extra riser come in there. I'm gonna start having that pad come back in as well. Now, where is the SSL filter for that? This is getting to be a bit of a mess. Everything's kind of dropped all over the place. So, where are you? Pad. There it is. I'm going to keep that with the actual pad sequencer lane so this doesn't happen again. Nice. I do love that sound. And I might also have the... Oh, it's already cranked way up. Never mind. So yeah, I'm going to add some little vocally washes here, I think. Oh, actually I need... Yeah, so I'm just going to take those. Let's just have that as one steady note. Actually, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's just have that. Just everything slowed down. I'm just going to join those so I can move those up very quickly. Ah, yes, I see. I'm playing Spot the rogue automation lane. Okay, I'm gonna add some vocally bits there and have it build back up into everything again, and then have some nice pad washes over the top, and then I think I'm gonna round it off there. So, I mean, we're already 4 minutes in. Damn, this is good stuff, right? I'm sorry, Buskin Bills asked me, what am I drinking tonight? I am drinking San Miguel because it's really hot and I wanted just a nice lager that tasted refreshing. Yeah, adds drinking canned house producers tears. Sustains me. That extra transient is extra loud. I think that's something I might play with tomorrow when I come back to this with fresh ears. Right, okay, now comes the time when I'm going to have to make a bit of a fool of myself and try recording some vocals again and play with them and see what happens. So, let's bring myself over to Reason. Hello, I'm in Reason. So, let's have some reverb. I can't do this without reverb. So, here we go. You know, I think I'm just going to start higher because the low notes were not doing it for me. So let's try that. Wait. let's use that as a base. Let's correct the pitch because that's waving all over the place. That's not even correct. So I chop that in half. There we go. I always find it helps when it detects the note changes correctly. It just assumed I was so massively out of tune. Actually, I might bring that in a little sooner. Just had a really interesting question. Do you use the inputs at the top of the mixer to gain stage when you mix after the streams, or is it just with the faders and the rack? I tend to stick to the rack. I tend to think of it as kind of a two-step process. The gain pots at the top of the mixer, I tend to use if I really need to give something a bump, or basically I like to keep the faders relatively sensible. So I don't want to have to crank them sort of, you know, plus 8 dB. If I can just give it a bump at the top, if that makes any sense. I like them to kind of, everything to be more or less level with a bit of room to wiggle. So it's just kind of it's sort of a separate thing. As you can see here, I haven't really touched it at the top. And also if I'm recording stuff, I might want to give things a bit of a bump when I'm recording, then I'll use the input pots at the top. So yes, I think during some of these I might have used the gains after the streams to kind of mess with the levels, but if I have, then I probably mentioned it afterwards. So yeah, that is a good question, and it's something I don't tend to think about a lot. It's more of a kind of natural process for me to just use that as kind of like a secondary gain before it hits the faders, and then this is where the real stuff happens. So yeah, it's time for some formant shifting fun. It is time for some formant shifting fun. So I might have that note coming a little sooner. So again, I feel really lazy doing this because it works. So here we go. I think that's worked quite nicely, and it's been a while since I've brought out the natural falsetto during these streams. I tend to just cheat and formant shift everything, so now I'm going to cheat and formant shift everything. So actually I like that as it is, so I'm going to duplicate it and use the formant shifted stuff as like an extra thing. So maybe I'll formant shift something lower. So I'm using Neptune to formant shift again. As someone rightly pointed out recently, you can formant shift stuff by using the pitch editor and Reason. I prefer using the Neptune. Again, it's just how I work. I'm kind of more familiar with what the different values represent and how it will sound. But you can do it using the pitch editor. You can just use the formant section here. So I'm aware of this. I'm just choosing not to use that. So with that in mind, I'm going to use this Neptune here and formant shift it. I'm going to disable the transpose section. Just formant shift that minus 10. Let's see. How's that going to work? I wonder what happens if I transpose that down an octave. I am actually going to use this. So I might turn the reverb down on those low vocals. So I've kind of gone the other way around this week. I've taken my high vocals and brought them down. Which is interesting, because I tend not to do that. So I'm creating kind of a weird harmony using that original vocal line. So I'm totally cheating with these vocal bits here, so I'm just going to solo what I've got here so far. And I am actually going to do something I haven't done for a while, and I'm going to use a saturator just to kind of widen these. So I've used the stereo turbo down to -100% on one of these channels and up to 100% on the second one. So it should give a nice sense of width. I might actually have that pad come in later because I think it's kind of interfering with what's there now, so I'm just going to extend that outwards. I think for the next section I might add an extra layer, like an actual recording over the top of that, just as like a nice simple harmony over the top. But I'm just going to play it from the beginning because it's been a while since I've listened to everything in context, so here we go. Had some interesting questions actually, I'll answer those while I'm playing. That's one reason why I don't tend to use stutter edit. Sometimes it craps out and it just decides to play a bunch of, in fact I'm going to save, it just decides to start triggering for no reason. There we go. So yeah, I shoot for -10 dB on my main elements. Yeah, I tend to go for, actually I'm going to stop this so I can answer this. In terms of how I sort of set my levels generally, when I'm using headphones, I tend to, and kind of generally speaking, I tend to aim for around -10 dB for kind of main elements that are up front in the mix. I tend to aim for that particularly with the kick, and then I tend to mix around the kick when it comes to the drums and the rest of the mix. So it's -10 for kind of prominent elements and -20 for secondary elements. So as I play the track, you might be able to see some of that in action. It's a very useful way of getting your levels roughly set, especially on headphones, where you can't necessarily rely entirely on your ears. So that's what this sounds like. So that's kind of hovering around between 10 and 20, -10 and 20 there. And that's way in the background. -40 is kind of for the real far back stuff. So when the kick comes in, you should see it's around -10. As is the bass. Once the pumping starts coming in on the ARP, that goes to around -20. So it is a nice rough guideline. Yeah, so that's a super awkward transition. So I'm thinking I might start messing around with the chords beforehand. Yeah. Might actually have that riser come in a little sooner. Nice. The wild loon. Interesting. So there's some interesting comments in the chat about putting a maximizer on the post mix. Generally speaking, I wouldn't actually bother. Like at the moment, I've got an M-class maximizer on with a 3 dB gain. That's mainly because I'm streaming and I feel like it's just kind of, it's good for me to have a rough idea of where things are and just kind of give everything a bit of a bump. So I'm not trying to maximize everything in the mixer. But generally speaking, I don't tend to have any post mix effects while I'm working on a track. If I need to tame anything in the mix, I'll do it in the mix. Like with the drums, I've got a limiter on the drums and that kind of thing. So I mean, I did actually have a maximizer on the output for many years, so whatever works for you basically. If it works, then great, but generally speaking, I'd say I wouldn't put a maximizer on the output section until you're done with a track, because it can cloud your judgment. But again, different things work for different people. So I need to work on this transition because it is kind of weird. So I think I need to filter out some of this stuff. And those bongos need to come down as this progresses. Let's have a bit of a bass dip there. So and I'm also going to, yeah, that makes sense. Oh man, I've got bots in the chat. Amazing. That's not... Actually, I think it might have happened once already. I think that works a bit better. Yeah, let's just have that again. And I think if I just have the bass come in normally now, it'll be interesting. Yeah, if I had an extra vocal element there, I think that would be nice. So I'm laughing at the fake bots turning up in the chat. To understand the bot, you must first become the bot. So let's bring that pad back, but maybe not quite as quickly. I'm absolutely going to... Actually, no, I just want to duplicate that. Right, let's just go. Close but no cigar.
Okay, let's do it.
So I'm thinking I'll bring everything in after that, when I pitch correct everything, because that was so horribly out of tune. Especially considering the fact it's... it's wobbling all over the place, like I don't think... You know what, I'm just going to re-record that because, wow. I think the fact that everything's washed in reverb is making it kind of hard for me to tell what the hell is going on. So I'm just going to delete that saturator and turn the dry wet down on the reverb. Okay, let's try this again. Right, let's try that. Oh man, it hasn't detected most of those pitch changes. That's really annoying. So let's just try that. Okay, let's correct that. Pretend there are no mistakes. Okay, now I'm thinking then that having a formant shift there could be interesting. So, if I paste one in there, disable transpose, I don't really need that, and just bump that up to like, I don't know, 10, right? And let's stretch that out, right? Right, okay, I want to build back into the track around that point. Maybe have another section there. Just have the low vocals come back in. Yeah, I think if I just have that ARP come back, that'll be nice. So we use the high pass filter. Okay, so let's have those fade into each other. I think I might have that sort of ramp drone thing come in a a little slower because it's a little distracting from everything else that's going on around it. So if I can find the actual channel that it's attached to again, fine, I'll just go back to the SSL mixer and do it from there. So if I alt click, of course ramp is miles away from its actual sequencer lane. I really wish it wouldn't do that. That's super annoying. So there we go. Yes, and then I'll have the final section come in there. Yes, good, 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 good. I need some more delay, like a big delay wash again. Just use the same one from before. Excellent. Let's bring everything back and add something over the top. I'm thinking like a really nice trancey pad. That's gonna be good. Oh yeah, I need to bring that feedback down because that's totally excessive. Yes, please start bombarding me with track title ideas because I have none. Oh god. And you're also forgetting something. One thing I'm going to add a ride over the top of that because of course I am, and I'm going to add a nice big pad. I think that'll be spot on. So, actually, if I go to cymbals and rides, let's have a. That'll do. Come back. Right, pop that in channel 7. Why not? Ooh my! I think it'll be easier to mix when it's actually in. So let's create a new note lane. Maybe not. And I'm going to transpose that. Right, so let's have a nice like washy pad. So I'm thinking it's actually been a while since I've used Antidote, and I'm thinking like a nice kind of big super saw kind of pad that just descends. So I'm just going to crank the count up to 4, turn the spread up. Right. That's sounding nice and interesting. So I'm going to use. starting to think that Buskerville's asked, any chance you can find the actual sample pack from Music Radar that those vinyl samples came from last week? Bit harsh, but the pop was just too much for me. I can't remember what it's called, unfortunately. I downloaded it like, it was a while ago. I never actually used them. I fully intended to for ages, and then I just kind of forgot. So sorry, I know that's not a lot of help, but hang on. This is either going to sound incredibly cheesy or it might work. I'm not generally big into kind of super saws unless it fits the track, but we'll see. I think that could work. It just needs a bit of treatment. And by bit of treatment, I mean, you know what I mean. A bit of reverb. Oh, there it is! DR1, fantastic. It's remembered. Right. Maybe it's per session or something. So, right. I think that decay on the fills is just a bit too much so. I just need to... Right, I'm gonna add an instance of pulsar so I can So I can just automatically pan that. So I'm taking the CV out from Pulsar and just routing it into the pan input on this particular channel, just so it kind of sweeps around. So I'm going to turn that down so it's nice and slow. And that should fly around a bit. So I just take those piano bits, bring them back for this final bit here, and add the old vocals. Oopsie daisy. I just take those actually and just bring them in. Right, okay. So, yeah, this is getting interesting. So, see some interesting title ideas. Face Wave, a new genre title for Adam's bodily sound design. Bodily sound design sounds very Cronenbergian. I'm not super into that. Zodiac of Capella. That sounds quite proggy, as in prog rock, more so than prog house. I don't know. Sun Assembly's quite nice. I like that idea. I'll think of that one. But keep the ideas coming. Keep them coming. I'm just waiting for that one to like really pop so far. So yeah, just keep them coming. Oh no, I just don't think we can find one this week. Oh no, but I can't come up with ideas on my own. I'll have a ponder when I'm listening. There's too much going on with the vocals as well, so I'm just taking those out. I'll bring them in again after this section when everything's fading out. Oh, Sunset Waves, I like that. Sunset Waves, that's nice. Yeah, I'm going with that, unless something else pops. Keep them coming though. Like this is a go-to, yeah. Well, that's an underwhelming release there, so I'm going to mute that ARP section there and bring in the delay again, because I think that was a nice kind of release. So yeah, I want several elements to drop by that point. So I think if I'm just start fading stuff out, have that ramp come down. And have that top come down. If I just have the reverb turn up on the drums again at the end. Yeah, this is coming to a nice conclusion now, I think. Holy crap, it's 6 minutes long. Did not realize. Oh wow. And let's bring the sidechain down on that bass at the end. So where are you? Where are you, sidechain Dewberry? Right. You can't do house at radio length. Welcome to house, the genre where you don't leave the dance floor until you pass out. I'm amazed I've written a tune that's about 7 minutes long over the course of and this is the second tune I've written today. What the hell? Bananas. I need that pad to fade out at the end as well. So I just want that bass to ride out. Dum. Lovely. Lovely. Right, where are you, bass? There we go. And I might just grab some of the pad chords at the end as well. Or not. Oh, actually, I could... Oh, well, that. And we haven't even started on block 2. Yeah, block 2 ain't happening. I love it. let's just have that fade out there. Whoops, the metronome does everything. Damn. Right. Let's just have that nicely fade out. In fact, I'm going to stick an ECF on here because I always really like using the ECF 42 to fade stuff out. I can't really explain why, but I just do. So that's what I'm going to use on the pad at the end. So it just has this nice kind of slowly. Oh, there we go. 7.5 minutes. Maybe up the tempo to 140. I mean, I feel like that's a late game change at this point. No, I'm going to leave that as it is. And I feel like it's been a bit of a journey. I'm going to listen to this from start to finish. And I don't think I'm going to change anything, because if I start down this rabbit hole, I'm never actually going to stop this stream. So I'm just going to listen to it. This is Sunset Waves, unless I think of another title in the next 7.5 minutes. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me throughout this entire thing. And yeah, Progressive House always did push past 7 minutes. I just didn't expect to do that during a stream. So here we go. I'm just going to play it from start to finish, and hopefully nothing sticks out as sounding awful. So here we go. I'll keep quiet and go to it. Oh, my taskbar's popped up for some reason. There we go. Right, here we go. Oh, show us the mini rack maxed out. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. The mini rack maxed out. What do you mean? Which rack? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I'm gonna play it. Let me know what you mean, and I'll see what I can do. Right. Here we go. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think if I was going to look at anything, I think the kind of final section, I think I kind of lose a bit of energy around there. But I'm not sure if that's, I think that's definitely something I need to listen to with fresh ears to really decide for myself. And I really don't want to overdo it because I like what's there at the moment. It just kind of feels like maybe an extra element could help. But for now, I'm going to leave it. And I can't believe that is, yeah, I can't believe I've written a 7.5 minute tune in the past couple of hours on top of the jungle track I wrote earlier today. It's crazy. I'm asking Adam to do 24-hour sessions. 3 hours is not enough. I don't think I have it in me, to be honest. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to stick around for a bit after this stream. If you're watching this on Twitch, so yeah. But I think for the actual session itself, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to revisit this tomorrow with a fresh pair of ears and tweak it a bit. Maybe mess around with a couple of arrangement things here and there. I can't believe that when I started this, I thought, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be able to finish this. So yeah, there's always that niggling doubt in my mind. So I'm glad tonight was unwarranted this time, and how. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me. And again, if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around after this and I'll answer any questions you've got. But if you're watching this on YouTube, this is the end of the stream. And I hope you'll join me for whatever I end up doing next Thursday. I imagine it won't be another 7.5 minute job. But yeah, I'm curious as to what I'll do next week. But anyway, I'll leave it there. That's the end of the music making session. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed what I've done this week. And as always, if you check the comments or the chat, there's a link to the tune and the project file and the exported version of the tune and all of my other live stream tracks. So do check that out if you want to give it a listen or dissect the project file yourself. And that's it from me. So stick around if you're on Twitch, but otherwise, thanks for joining me and cheers. Bye bye.